Dog barks for help at police station, leading cops to a shocking scene they'll never forget. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the sleepy town of Pine Ridge, bathing the main street in a golden hue. Inside the modest brick building that housed the Pine Ridge Police Department, Officer Mike Thompson leaned back in his chair, stifling a yawn. It was a typical Tuesday afternoon, quiet and uneventful, the kind that made the hours stretch out like an endless ribbon. His partner, Officer Sarah Jenkins, sat across from him, engrossed in a crossword puzzle. The only sound in the room was the rhythmic tapping of her pen against the desk and the occasional chirp of the police radio. Suddenly, the quiet was shattered by a frantic scratching at the front door. Mike and Sarah exchanged surprised glances. Visitors were rare at this time of day, especially visitors of the four-legged variety. Mike rose from his chair and cautiously approached the door. As he peered through the glass, his eyes widened in surprise. A large, mud-splattered dog stood on the porch, its tongue lolling out, its sides heaving with exhaustion. It was a golden retriever, its fur matted and tangled, its eyes filled with a desperate plea. Mike opened the door cautiously, and the dog, with a whimper of relief, stumbled into the station. It collapsed onto the cool tile floor, its body trembling with exhaustion. Sarah knelt beside the dog, her hand gently stroking its fur. "Poor thing," she murmured. "You look like you've been through a lot." The dog, as if in response, licked her hand gratefully, its tail thumping weakly against the floor. Mike and Sarah exchanged puzzled glances. What was a dog doing at the police station, alone and clearly distressed? Was it lost, injured, or was there something more to its desperate arrival? A sense of curiosity and concern washed over them. They had both been officers in Pine Ridge for years, and they knew the town and its residents like the back of their hands. But this dog was a stranger, its presence an enigma that piqued their interest. "What do you think, Mike?" Sarah asked, her brow furrowed. "Should we try to find its owner?" Mike nodded slowly. "Yeah, we should. But something tells me there's more to this than just a lost dog." He knelt beside Sarah, examining the dog more closely. It wore no collar, no identification tags, no indication of its origins. But there was something in its eyes, a desperate plea for help, that tugged at their heartstrings. "Let's take a closer look," Mike said, his voice filled with determination. "Maybe we can find a clue, something that will lead us to its owner." They examined the dog carefully, searching for any distinguishing marks, any indication of its home. But the dog remained a mystery, its presence an enigma that deepened their curiosity and their growing sense of concern. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the police station floor, Mike and Sarah knew they had a decision to make. Should they simply try to find the dog's owner and leave it at that? Or should they follow their instincts, their sense of duty, and delve deeper into the mystery that had arrived on their doorstep? The golden retriever, now resting peacefully on a blanket provided by Sarah, watched the two officers with large, soulful eyes. The initial panic had subsided, replaced by a quiet exhaustion and a lingering air of expectancy. Mike and Sarah, their curiosity piqued, found themselves drawn into the silent plea emanating from the creature. "He's definitely not a stray," Sarah observed, stroking the dog's soft fur. "His coat is too well maintained, and he seems to understand basic commands." Mike nodded in agreement. "He's also got a certain intelligence in his eyes, like he's trying to tell us something." They tried coaxing the dog with treats and water, hoping to gain its trust and perhaps decipher the reason for its desperate arrival. The dog lapped up the water gratefully and accepted the treats with gentle manners, but its gaze remained fixed on the door, a silent plea for them to follow. "It's like he wants us to go somewhere with him," Sarah said, her voice laced with intrigue. Mike, a seasoned officer with a keen intuition, felt a tug of agreement. He had seen enough cases in his career to recognize when an animal was trying to communicate something urgent. This wasn't just a lost dog. It was a messenger, a furry beacon leading them towards an unknown situation. "I think we should follow him," Mike declared, his voice firm with conviction. Sarah, though hesitant at first, couldn't deny the pull of the mystery. But where could he be leading us? And why? Mike shrugged. That's what we're going to find out. Something tells me this dog is trying to get help for someone. The idea settled over them, a sense of urgency replacing their initial hesitation. They were officers of the law, sworn to protect and serve, and this dog, in its own way, was calling for their assistance. All right, Sarah agreed, a spark of determination in her eyes. Let's see where this furry friend wants to take us. They grabbed their jackets and flashlights, preparing for the unexpected. As they stepped out of the police station, the dog, now rejuvenated with a renewed sense of purpose, bounded ahead, leading the way into the twilight. The streets of Pine Ridge were quiet, most of the townsfolk already settled in for the evening. The dog, with a confident stride, navigated the familiar streets, occasionally glancing back to ensure the officers were following. They passed by Mrs. Gable's flower shop, its windows displaying vibrant blooms even in the fading light. They crossed the town square, where the old fountain gurgled softly, its waters reflecting the twinkling stars that had begun to emerge in the darkening sky. The dog led them past the familiar landmarks, the library, the post office, the ice cream parlor where children flocked on summer afternoons. With each passing block, the mystery deepened, the anticipation growing. As they ventured beyond the town limits, the paved roads gave way to dirt tracks, the houses becoming more sparse, the surrounding landscape transitioning into fields and forests. The dog, its pace unwavering, continued to lead them deeper into the unknown. Mike and Sarah, their flashlights cutting through the darkness, followed closely, their minds filled with questions, their hearts pounding with a mix of curiosity and apprehension. They were venturing into uncharted territory, guided by a dog on a mission, their sense of duty and their desire to help propelling them forward. The night air was crisp and clear, the stars twinkling like diamonds scattered across the velvet sky. The only sounds were the rhythmic chirping of crickets and the soft crunch of their footsteps on the gravel road. The dog, now a silhouette against the moonlit landscape, trotted ahead with a determined gait, occasionally pausing to glance back at the officers, as if urging them to keep up. Mike and Sarah, their flashlights illuminating the path ahead, followed in silence, their minds buzzing with questions. Where was this dog leading them? What awaited them at the end of this mysterious journey? As they ventured deeper into the countryside, the houses became fewer and farther between, replaced by rolling fields and dense patches of woodland. The air grew heavy with the scent of pine needles and damp earth, a stark contrast to the faint smell of chlorine that lingered from the town pool they had passed earlier. The dog, with an uncanny sense of direction, navigated the winding dirt roads with ease, its paws finding the surest footing even in the darkness. Mike and Sarah, less accustomed to the uneven terrain, stumbled occasionally, their flashlights dancing erratically in the night. "This dog sure knows where it's going," Sarah commented, her voice barely above a whisper. "Yeah," Mike replied, his eyes scanning the surrounding landscape. "But where? And why?" Their curiosity grew with each passing mile, fueled by the dog's unwavering determination and the growing sense of mystery that surrounded their journey. Suddenly, the dog veered off the road, disappearing into a thicket of trees. Mike and Sarah, their hearts pounding with anticipation, followed cautiously, their flashlights cutting through the darkness, illuminating the dense undergrowth. The dog led them through a labyrinth of tangled branches and thorny bushes, its path seemingly guided by an unseen force. Mike and Sarah, their uniforms snagging on the undergrowth, struggled to keep up, their breaths growing heavy with exertion. After what seemed like an eternity, the dog emerged from the thicket, leading them into a clearing bathed in moonlight. In the center of the clearing stood an old farmhouse, its silhouette stark against the starry sky. The house was a picture of neglect, its paint peeling, its windows boarded up, its porch sagging precariously. An air of desolation hung over the place, a sense of forgotten memories and abandoned dreams. Mike and Sarah exchanged uneasy glances. This was not the destination they had expected. What could possibly await them in this desolate dwelling? The dog, sensing their hesitation, let out a soft whimper, its tail drooping slightly. It then turned and trotted towards the house, its paws echoing on the dilapidated porch. Mike and Sarah, their curiosity outweighing their apprehension, followed cautiously, their flashlights illuminating the path ahead. As they approached the house, a sense of foreboding washed over them, a premonition that they were about to step into a story far more complex and heart-wrenching than they had initially imagined. The old farmhouse stood before them, a silent sentinel against the night sky. Its weathered facade, etched with the passage of time, hinted at a story waiting to be uncovered. The dog, its tail wagging softly, sat patiently by the steps, its gaze fixed on the officers, as if inviting them to cross the threshold and delve into the mysteries within. Mike, ever cautious, approached the porch with measured steps, his flashlight beam dancing across the warped floorboards and peeling paint. Sarah followed close behind, her hand resting on her holster, her senses alert to any potential danger. As they stepped onto the porch, a creaking sound echoed through the stillness, a sound that spoke of long years of neglect and the weight of forgotten memories. The front door, its hinges rusted and warped, hung ajar, offering a glimpse into the darkened interior. Mike, his flashlight beam cutting through the gloom, cautiously pushed the door open. A musty odor wafted out, a mixture of dust, dampness, and the faint scent of decay. The air hung heavy with a sense of abandonment, a palpable silence that spoke volumes about the house's long-forgotten occupants. They stepped inside, their flashlights illuminating the dusty furniture, the cobweb-draped walls, and the faded photographs that clung precariously to the mantelpiece. The house was a time capsule, a testament to a life lived and a story left untold. As they moved through the house, their footsteps echoing in the silence, they stumbled upon a living room, its centerpiece a worn armchair facing a cold fireplace. A book lay open on the armrest, its pages yellowed with age. A half-finished knitting project rested on the floor beside the chair, its needles frozen mid-stitch. A sense of sadness washed over them, a poignant reminder of the passage of time and the fragility of life. Who had lived in this house? What stories had unfolded within these walls? And where were they now? The dog, sensing their somber mood, nudged Mike's hand gently, its eyes pleading for them to continue their exploration. It led them down a narrow hallway, its paws patting softly on the creaking floorboards. They passed by closed doors, each one a portal to a hidden room, a forgotten memory. The dog paused at the end of the hallway, its gaze fixed on a closed door at the far end. Mike, his curiosity piqued, approached the door cautiously. He turned the knob slowly, the rusty hinges groaning in protest. The door swung open, revealing a small bedroom, its furnishings sparse and worn. A single bed, its sheets rumpled and faded, occupied one corner of the room. A bedside table, its surface cluttered with pill bottles and a framed photograph, stood beside the bed. Mike and Sarah exchanged a knowing glance. This was clearly the room of the house's occupant, the person the dog had been trying to lead them to. But where were they? As they stepped into the room, their flashlights illuminating the details, a soft whimper escaped the dog's lips. It trotted towards the bed, its tail wagging excitedly, its eyes fixed on a figure lying motionless beneath the covers. Mike and Sarah, their hearts pounding with a mix of anticipation and dread, approached the bed cautiously. They gently pulled back the covers, revealing an elderly man, his face pale and drawn, his breathing shallow and labored. "He's alive," Sarah whispered, her voice filled with relief. Mike nodded, his eyes scanning the man's frail form. "But he's in trouble. We need to get him help." As they assessed the situation, their minds racing with questions, a voice from the doorway startled them. "Who are you?" a woman asked, her voice trembling with a mix of fear and suspicion. "What are you doing in my father's house?" The woman stood framed in the doorway, her silhouette stark against the dim light filtering from the hallway. Her face, etched with worry lines and shadowed by the flickering flashlight beams, held a mixture of apprehension and relief. Mike, ever the officer, quickly took charge. "Ma'am, we're police officers. This dog led us here. Your father seems to be in need of medical attention." Sarah gently moved to the woman's side, offering a reassuring presence. "We're here to help. Can you tell us what happened?" The woman, her initial suspicion giving way to a flood of emotions, stepped into the room. "I'm Emily, his daughter. I haven't been able to visit him as often as I should. I live in the city, and with work." Her voice trailed off, guilt evident in her tone. She explained that her father, Thomas, was a fiercely independent man who valued his solitude. He had lived in this old farmhouse for decades, content with his own company and the companionship of his beloved dog, Champ. Emily visited when she could, but the demands of her city life often kept her away. "Champ," she said, her voice catching as she looked at the dog, who was now sitting patiently by Thomas's bedside. "He's always been Dad's shadow, his best friend." Mike and Sarah listened intently, piecing together the fragments of the story. It was a tale as old as time, of an aging parent clinging to independence, a devoted child struggling to balance obligations, and a loyal animal bridging the gap between them. "We found Champ at the police station," Mike explained. "He was exhausted and covered in mud, but he was determined to get our attention." Emily's eyes widened. "He went all the way to the police station." "Oh, Champ, you clever boy." She knelt beside the dog, burying her face in his fur. "You saved him, didn't you?" Champ, in response, licked away her tears with a soft whimper. The officers, witnessing this tender moment, felt a surge of warmth amidst the somber atmosphere. They had stumbled upon a story of unwavering loyalty, a testament to the profound bond between humans and animals. But the urgency of the situation remained. Thomas, his breathing shallow and his skin clammy, clearly needed medical attention. Mike quickly radioed for an ambulance, relaying their location and the situation. While they waited for the paramedics to arrive, Sarah gently checked Thomas's vital signs, her trained eye assessing his condition. He was weak and dehydrated, his pulse faint but steady. She reassured Emily that they would do everything they could to help him. Emily, her anxiety palpable, paced the room, her gaze flitting between her father and the officers. She recounted how Thomas had been increasingly frail in recent months, his health declining steadily. He had refused to leave his home, his stubborn independence a barrier to seeking proper medical care. "He's always been a stubborn one," she said with a sad smile. "But I never thought it would come to this." As the wail of the approaching ambulance broke the silence of the night, a sense of hope mingled with the lingering anxiety. The House of Shadows, once a place of isolation and neglect, was now a beacon of light, a testament to the unwavering loyalty of a dog and the compassion of those who answered its call for help. The arrival of the paramedics brought a flurry of activity to the quiet farmhouse. The flashing lights of the ambulance illuminated the surrounding woods, casting an eerie glow on the weathered facade of the house. The EMTs, their movements efficient and practiced, rushed into the bedroom, their voices a calm counterpoint to the rising tension. Mike and Sarah stepped back, allowing the medical professionals to take over. They watched as the EMTs assessed Thomas's condition, their faces etched with concern as they checked his vitals and administered oxygen. Emily, her anxiety now laced with a glimmer of hope, hovered nearby, her eyes fixed on her father's frail form. Champ, sensing the gravity of the situation, remained by Thomas's side, his presence a silent source of comfort. As the EMTs prepared to transport Thomas to the hospital, Mike approached Emily, his voice gentle and reassuring. "We'll follow the ambulance," he said. "We'll stay with your father until you can get there." Emily, her eyes filled with gratitude, nodded silently. She reached out and clasped Mike's hand, her touch conveying a depth of appreciation that words could not express. The ambulance, its siren wailing, sped off into the night, followed closely by Mike and Sarah's patrol car. Champ, his loyalty unwavering, whined softly as he watched his beloved companion being taken away. Emily, her face pale with worry, knelt beside the dog, her hand gently stroking his fur. "Don't worry, Champ," she whispered. "We'll be with him soon." The ride to the hospital was a blur of flashing lights and tense silence. Mike and Sarah, their minds replaying the events of the evening, couldn't help but marvel at the chain of events that had led them to this moment. A dog's desperate journey, a dilapidated farmhouse, an elderly man in need of help. It was a story that defied coincidence, a testament to the interconnectedness of life and the power of instinct and compassion. Upon arrival at the hospital, they accompanied Thomas to the emergency room, where he was immediately admitted for treatment. They relayed the details of their discovery to the medical staff, emphasizing the dog's role in alerting them to Thomas's condition. The doctors, impressed by Champ's loyalty and intelligence, praised his actions, acknowledging the crucial role he had played in saving his owner's life. They assured Emily that Thomas was in good hands, that they would do everything they could to stabilize his condition. Emily, her anxiety gradually easing, settled into a waiting room chair, Champ curled up at her feet. The exhaustion of the night finally caught up with her, her eyelids growing heavy, her mind drifting back to her childhood memories of her father and his beloved dog. She remembered the day her father brought Champ home, a tiny golden retriever puppy with boundless energy and a heart full of love. She recalled the countless hours she had spent playing with Champ in the fields surrounding the farmhouse, their laughter echoing through the summer air. She thought of the unwavering bond between her father and his dog, a bond that had endured through the years, a bond that had ultimately saved her father's life. And as she drifted off to sleep, a sense of gratitude washed over her, a gratitude for the loyal companion who had never given up on his beloved human, and for the officers who had answered his desperate call for help. The emergency room bustled with activity, a symphony of hurried footsteps, urgent voices, and the beeping of medical equipment. Thomas, pale and fragile, lay on a gurney, surrounded by a team of doctors and nurses working tirelessly to stabilize his condition. Mike and Sarah, having relayed all the information they had to the medical staff, stood by anxiously, their concern for Thomas etched on their faces. They watched as the doctors administered medications, inserted forelines, and monitored his vital signs, their every move a testament to their expertise and dedication. Emily, awakened by the commotion, rushed to her father's side, her eyes filled with a mixture of fear and hope. She reached out and gently clasped his hand, her touch a silent plea for him to hold on, to fight for life. Champ, sensing the gravity of the situation, whined softly, his tail tucked between his legs. He watched the medical team with worried eyes, his loyal heart aching for his beloved companion. The hours stretched on, each minute an eternity as the medical team battled to stabilize Thomas's condition. The initial diagnosis was grim. Years of neglect and a stubborn refusal to seek medical attention had taken their toll. Thomas was suffering from a combination of heart problems, malnutrition, and dehydration, his body weakened to a critical state. The doctors, however, were determined to do everything in their power to save him. They worked tirelessly, their expertise and compassion evident in every action. They administered medications, performed tests, and consulted with specialists, their voices a constant hum of medical jargon that Emily struggled to comprehend. Mike and Sarah, though accustomed to witnessing scenes of human suffering, couldn't help but be moved by the dedication of the medical team and the unwavering love between Thomas and his dog. They had seen the worst of humanity in their line of work, but this situation, this testament to loyalty and compassion, restored their faith in the goodness of the human spirit. As the night wore on, the tension in the emergency room thickened. Thomas's condition remained critical, his body struggling to fight off the years of neglect. The doctors, their faces etched with fatigue, continued their efforts, their determination fueled by a deep-seated commitment to preserving life. Emily, her anxiety growing with each passing hour, paced the waiting room, her prayers a silent plea for her father's recovery. Champ, sensing her distress, remained by her side, his presence a comforting anchor in the storm of her emotions. The first rays of dawn filtered through the hospital windows, casting a pale light on the scene. The doctors, their faces etched with exhaustion, emerged from the treatment room, their expressions a mixture of weariness and cautious optimism. They informed Emily that Thomas had stabilized, that he was showing signs of improvement, but that he remained in critical condition. They emphasized the importance of continued care and monitoring, their voices carrying a note of cautious hope. Emily, her heart filled with a mix of relief and lingering anxiety, thanked the doctors profusely, her gratitude evident in her tear-filled eyes. She then rushed back to her father's bedside, her hand reaching out to gently touch his frail form. Jean, sensing the shift in the atmosphere, wagged his tail excitedly, his eyes filled with hope. He knew, with an instinct that transcended human understanding, that his beloved companion was going to be all right. The race against time was far from over, but a crucial battle had been won. Thomas, thanks to the unwavering loyalty of his dog and the dedication of the medical team, had been given a fighting chance, a chance to recover, to reunite with his daughter, to continue his life with the faithful companion who had never given up on him. The waiting room, with its sterile ambience and uncomfortable chairs, became Emily's temporary haven. She paced restlessly, her mind a whirlwind of worry and fragmented memories. Champ, ever loyal, remained by her side, his presence a comforting anchor in the storm of her emotions. Hours blurred into a monotonous cycle of anxious waiting, punctuated by brief updates from the medical staff. Thomas remained in critical but stable condition, his body slowly responding to the treatment. The doctors were cautiously optimistic, but they emphasized the need for continued monitoring and the uncertainty that lay ahead. Emily, exhausted yet unable to rest, found solace in Champ's companionship. She would talk to him, pouring out her fears and hopes, her voice a soft murmur in the quiet room. Champ, in turn, would listen with an attentive stillness, his head tilted slightly, his eyes reflecting her emotions with an uncanny empathy. In those quiet moments, Emily found herself reflecting on the depth of the bond between her father and his dog. She remembered how Champ had been there for her father through thick and thin, a constant companion through the loneliness of widowhood and the challenges of aging. She recalled how Champ would patiently wait for her father to finish his morning coffee, his tail wagging expectantly as they embarked on their daily walks through the woods. She remembered how Champ would curl up at her father's feet during his afternoon naps, his soft snores a comforting counterpoint to the ticking of the grandfather clock. She thought of the countless evenings they had spent together, her father reading aloud from his favorite books, Champ nestled beside him, his head resting on her father's lap. And she realized that Champ was more than just a pet. He was family, a furry extension of her father's heart, a living testament to the enduring power of love and loyalty. As the days turned into weeks, Thomas slowly began to recover. His strength returned gradually, his appetite improved, and his spirits lifted with each passing day. The doctors, impressed by his resilience, attributed his progress to a combination of medical intervention and the unwavering support of his daughter and his loyal companion. Emily, her heart filled with gratitude, spent hours by her father's bedside, reading to him, sharing stories of her life in the city, and making plans for his return home. Champ, ever present, would lie at the foot of the bed, his presence a soothing balm to Thomas's weary soul. One afternoon, as Emily read aloud from her father's favorite book of poetry, Thomas reached out a trembling hand and gently stroked Champ's fur. "He saved me, Emily," he whispered, his voice hoarse but filled with affection. "He knew I needed help." Emily nodded, tears welling up in her eyes. "He did, Dad. He's a hero." Champ, sensing the emotion in their voices, wagged his tail softly, his eyes shining with love and devotion. He had done what any loyal companion would do. He had answered the call of his heart. He had braved the unknown to seek help for the one he loved most. In that moment, the bond between them, already strong, deepened into an unbreakable connection, a testament to the enduring power of love, loyalty, and the extraordinary connection between humans and animals. News of Thomas's plight and Champ's heroic journey spread through Pine Ridge like wildfire. The story, a heartwarming tale of loyalty and resilience, resonated with the townsfolk, who had always known Thomas as a quiet and solitary figure. Word reached Mrs. Gable, the kindly owner of the flower shop, who had often seen Thomas and Champ on their daily walks. She decided to organize a collection of get-well cards and flowers, enlisting the help of her fellow shopkeepers and customers. The local newspaper, the Pine Ridge Gazette, picked up the story, publishing a front-page article with the headline, "Loyal Dog Saves Owner's Life." The article, accompanied by a photo of Champ sitting proudly beside Thomas's hospital bed, touched the hearts of readers throughout the county. Even the mayor of Pine Ridge, a gruff but kind-hearted man named Bob Miller, paid a visit to Thomas in the hospital, presenting him with a certificate of appreciation for Champ's outstanding service to the community. The outpouring of support overwhelmed Emily and Thomas. They received a steady stream of visitors, from old friends and neighbors to complete strangers who had been touched by their story. Cards, flowers, and gifts filled Thomas's hospital room, a testament to the kindness and compassion of the Pine Ridge community. Emily, initially hesitant to share her father's story, realized the positive impact it was having on the town. She saw how it brought people together, how it sparked conversations about the importance of community and the power of animal companionship. She began to share anecdotes about her father and Champ, their daily routines, their shared adventures, their unwavering bond. She spoke of her father's love for the outdoors, his passion for gardening, his quiet wisdom that had guided her through the challenges of life. The townsfolk, in turn, shared their own memories of Thomas, their encounters with him at the local library, the hardware store, the farmer's market. They spoke of his gentle demeanor, his kind smile, his unwavering love for his dog. A sense of community spirit blossomed, a renewed appreciation for the connections that bound them together. Neighbors who had rarely spoken now exchanged friendly greetings, shopkeepers offered helping hands, and children organized a fundraising bake sale to help with Thomas's medical expenses. The story of Thomas and Champ became a symbol of hope and resilience, a reminder that even in the face of adversity, the human spirit, bolstered by the unwavering loyalty of a furry companion, could triumph. And as Thomas's health continued to improve, the town of Pine Ridge celebrated the unbreakable bond between a man and his dog, a bond that had not only saved a life, but had also brought a community together. Spring arrived in Pine Ridge, bringing with it a renewed sense of hope and a burst of vibrant colors. The trees lining Main Street were adorned with fresh green leaves, the flower boxes outside Mrs. Gable's shop overflowed with colorful blooms, and the air was filled with the sweet scent of blossoming lilacs. Thomas, his health fully restored, returned home to his beloved farmhouse, his heart filled with gratitude for the outpouring of support from the community and the unwavering loyalty of his canine companion. The house, once a picture of neglect, had been spruced up by the caring hands of his neighbors. The porch had been repaired, the windows gleamed with fresh paint, and the garden bloomed with a riot of colorful flowers. Emily, having taken a leave of absence from her city job, stayed with her father, helping him to settle back into his routine and ensuring he received the care he needed. She found joy in rediscovering the simple pleasures of rural life, the quiet mornings spent sipping coffee on the porch, the afternoons spent tending to the garden, the evenings filled with the comforting sounds of crickets and the distant hooting of owls. Champ, his tail wagging incessantly, reveled in having both his beloved humans back home. He accompanied Thomas on his daily walks, his furry form a familiar sight on the streets of Pine Ridge. He curled up at Emily's feet while she read, his soft snores a comforting lullaby, and he basked in the warmth of their love, his loyal heart overflowing with gratitude for the reunion. Life in Pine Ridge had returned to its peaceful rhythm, but something had shifted, a subtle change that rippled through the community. The story of Thomas and Champ had left an indelible mark, a reminder of the importance of connection, compassion, and the enduring power of love. Neighbors looked out for each other with renewed vigilance, friendships deepened, and a sense of shared responsibility for the well-being of the community took root. The town, once a collection of individuals, had become a true community, united by a shared experience and a newfound appreciation for the bonds that tied them together. Mike and Sarah, reflecting on the events that had unfolded, felt a renewed sense of purpose in their roles as officers of the law. They had witnessed the best of humanity, the kindness of strangers, the unwavering loyalty of a dog, and the resilience of the human spirit. They had played a small part in a story that had touched the hearts of many, a story that reminded them of the true meaning of service and the profound impact they could have on the lives of others. As the sun set on Pine Ridge, casting a golden glow on the reunited family and their loyal companion, a sense of peace settled over the town. The story of Thomas, Emily, and Champ had become a cherished part of their collective memory, a testament to the enduring power of love, loyalty, and the extraordinary connection between humans and animals. And in the quiet moments, as the stars twinkled in the night sky, the whispers of their story echoed through the streets of Pine Ridge, a reminder of the unbreakable bonds that held them together, a beacon of hope and resilience in a world that often seemed dark and uncertain.